Imagine this. You left behind a life of persecution and war. You arrive in the United Kingdom by boat. You are detained at an immigration center. The authorities believe you are at risk of suicide. What do they ask you to do? Learn a musical instrument or play Sudoku? I'm not making this up. This happened to a man at a UK immigration removal center. He was served a notice for removal to Rwanda, and for his mental health problems, he was asked to play Sudoku. And this is the current condition of the UK's immigration system. The same system that will now send asylum seekers to Rwanda. It is a controversial plan to begin with. In April, the United Kingdom had devised a new scheme, a plan to send asylum seekers to Rwanda, one that Britain's Home Secretary proudly described as a world first. Preeti Patel even travelled to Rwanda's capital. She signed a new agreement on migration, a pact to provide immigrants a one-way ticket to the country. So here is how it will work. The UK asylum seekers will be packed onto a flight and sent to Rwanda, a country located 6,500 kilometers away in Africa. And once they are there, the fate of the migrants will be in the hands of Rwanda. Whether they get to stay or leave will be decided by the Rwandan government. Even if the migrants win asylum, they will only be able to stay in Rwanda for just 5 years. After that, they will have to find shelter elsewhere. Now, here's the thing. Britain does not have to keep the migrants. They have all the right to deport migrants from the country. But the question is, why Rwanda? It has one of the worst records on human rights violations in the world. There are concerns about its treatment of the LGBTQ community. These are refugees who are fleeing persecution in their own countries. So why ship them to a country that cracks down on human rights? Also, while the UK can send refugees to other countries, they must abide by the rules set by the 1951 UN Refugee Convention. It says, and I'm quoting, a refugee should not be returned to a country where they face serious threats to their life or freedom. This is international law, one that both Boris Johnson and Preeti Patel clearly have no regard for. The UK Prime Minister has time and again defended the controversial plan. He says the government hopes the scheme will discourage asylum seekers, especially those from crossing the English Channel. Over 10,000 people have crossed the English Channel to reach UK so far this year. Last year, more than 28,000 people made the crossing. Johnson says the criminal gangs are selling migrants false hopes. And his plan is to basically break their business model.
This is about making sure that we break the business model of criminal gangs who are not only risking people's lives, but undermining public confidence in legal migration. My family is beneficiary of legal migration to this country. Lots of businesses have legal migration to this country. We want to stop the illegal migrants from coming in. We want to deter the criminal gangs because they're not only endangering their lives, they're ripping them off.
The Rwanda asylum plan has been met with protests across the country. NGOs are trying to fight it. People have taken to the streets. And according to reports, even the Buckingham Palace has something to say. Reports suggest that Prince Charles has called this plan appalling in private. The heir to the British throne was heard criticizing the government policy. The Rwanda asylum plan is facing its last challenge at the moment. UK campaigners get their last chance in court to stop the flight. But the government is vowing to push ahead. They are planning to put 11 migrants on a chartered flight on Tuesday from an undisclosed airport.
Our concerns are that the policy might not in fact be lawful, that it might contravene international refugee law and human rights law. And we think it's very important that the case is heard and this is properly determined before anyone is sent to Rwanda.
Earlier this year, the UK launched a new visa. It was aimed at attracting the brightest and best from the world. If you qualify, you can live in the UK for 2 years, even without a job offer. For many, that is a reminder. The UK, in fact, does have an open-door immigration policy, but only if you went to Harvard. And with us on the broadcast for more on this is Scott Lucas from London. He is a professor of international politics at the University of Birmingham. Thanks very much for being us with here, Scott. Ever since this plan was announced, the UK government has faced backlash from within the country as well as outside, but it has vowed to push ahead. Tell us about the legal challenges at the moment, the fight in the court against this plan.
Well, there is a specific legal challenge that is being heard even as we speak, and that is about the plan which was to send 37 people to Rwanda on this flight tomorrow. Now, the number has been reduced to 11 because the government has realized it has legal issues with 26 of these people, that it hasn't given them due process, but they still want a token flight to go tomorrow. So we'll see what happens on the specific challenge. But we have broader legal challenges that go back to April when this was passed, because this is part of a wider, huge change in the UK's approach to migrants and refugees under the Nationality and Borders Bill. And that bill strips away rights from migrants, refugees, even from dual nationals like myself, who could be deported under certain conditions. And the fundamental right that the government is trying to challenge, and why there is an international legal issue here is that a migrant or refugee has an established right to claim asylum when they reach a country. Doesn't matter how they reach it, whether it's by plane, whether it's by lorry, whether it's by small boat, they have the right not to be immediately thrown out of the country while the legal process is heard. And what the UK government has tried to do is sweep away that process or curb it significantly by saying, look, you want to claim asylum? Fine. You do it for Rwanda, despite, as you mentioned, the significant questions about Rwanda's human rights records and about questions about whether Rwanda will simply send the refugees back to their home country from which they fled, fearing in many cases persecution and violence.
Right, but in spite of all these questions, the criticism, the backlash, the UK government has vowed to push ahead. Why do you think that is? What is the point that they are trying to make?
I need to be honest with you. This is crude power politics using the bodies of migrants and refugees. The government is in serious trouble. You've already mentioned Partygate and the vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister. You could also talk about the economic consequences of Brexit combined with those in the pandemic, where we have just entered into a recessionary period. Our growth rate went down 3.3% last month. On top of that, you have political opportunism. And again, I must be honest with you. The Home Secretary, Ms. Patel, has built her political career on being this get-tough person, this person who panders to the anti-immigrant rhetoric of the Conservative Party. And Ms. Patel, who herself, of course, is of Indian origin, is using the idea of, well, it can't be racist if I do it. A government wants a headline, and it would rather have a headline about deporting people to Rwanda rather than talking about our economic issues here, rather than talking, of course, about the Prime Minister himself.
Scott Lucas, thanks very much for being here with us and helping us better understand the politics which is really behind this plan that the UK government has come up with for asylum seekers. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.